Hello everyone, welcome to my graduation project presentation. My project is about designing a tool to help informal caregivers provide better dementia care experiences for people with dementia. I will introduce the graduation project from 4 aspects. First, a brief introduction of the background. Then I will introduce the general process of this project. The third part is about the final design, and at the end is my personal reflection. Firstly, let me introduce the background. As we all know, dementia is a worldwide common disease that is incurable and the progression cannot be stopped. But some symptoms can be alleviated by medical treatments and non-pharmacological interventions. Normally, people with dementia need extra care support due to the degeneration of cognitive and physical capabilities that interfere with daily activities. Some patients live in the nursing home or care centers, and they are cared by nurses, while the majority of patients live with and are cared by the informal caregivers at home. The informal caregivers are usually the patient's spouse, children, other family members, or a paid worker. However, these informal caregivers are lacking relevant knowledge or training. Inappropriate nursing will lead to a poor dementia care experience. Here comes the question: how can informal caregivers learn the relevant knowledge and provide the appropriate care to the people with dementia? Therefore, for this project, I would like to design a tool to help informal caregivers provide better dementia caring experience for people with dementia. Before the introduction of the project, I would like to elaborate more on the project context and the preliminary research results. In China, there are a lot of well-experienced informal caregivers who lack systematic and professional training but have a lot of practical experience. They developed a few special necks through practical experience. Actually, these special necks are modified or redesigned applications of non-pharmacological interventions, which are based on medical theories. For example, a neck collected from the preliminary research is that playing Chinese opera for patients can make the patient turn to positive emotion, which actually applied music therapy. Another neck is asking the patients to count beans when they are irritable, which can calm them down. This method actually distracts the patient from the annoying things first, then concentrating on the counting, thus calming the mind. Such necks work well for the patients as they are personalized non-pharmacological interventions according to the patient's conditions. Therefore, I would like to design a tool to help informal caregivers deal with symptoms by learning these necks, learning more about non-pharmacological interventions, and applying them. The process of this project followed the double diamond model: discover, define, develop, and deliver. In the discover phase, different research methods were applied, and different stakeholders were involved to dig deeper into the research questions. Then, the research results were summarized during the define phase. The design problem, target users, and the use scenario will be defined. Then, in the develop phase, multiple concepts were created. After evaluation, one concept was chosen to be further detailed, iterated, and finally delivered. This is the overall process of the project. Let's go to see the detailed steps. At the beginning of the project, a lot of research was conducted to learn more about these 5 research aims. First, I need to understand the current context of dementia care provider model. The second aim was to understand and cluster holistic symptoms of dementia. Then, the third aim was to acquiring the knowledge of non-pharmacological intervention. Then the fourth aim was to collect next of dementia care, which means some special techniques to deal with symptoms of people with dementia that's developed by experienced caregivers. The last aim was to learn more about our target user, the informal caregivers, quickly understand them. As mentioned before, there are two ways to receive dementia care. One is living at care center and cared by caregivers and nurses. Another one is living at home and cared by informal caregivers. For Model 1, living at care center, here is the stakeholders and their relationships. Sometimes people with dementia can receive non-pharmacological interventions guided by the therapist. It's more like an unusual session for the people with dementia to train on specific capability, such as cognitive training, language training, and so on. However, in their daily life, they still encounter a lot of unexpected symptoms. If there is such a tool, then the caregivers and the nurses can apply some next to deal with these symptoms in daily life, and the people with dementia can receive a better care experience. While for Model 2, for those people with dementia live at home, professional non-pharmacological interventions are missing in the home context now. If the user wanted to participate in the non-pharmacological interventions, they needed to go to the rehabilitation center. Therefore, if there is such a tool, then the caregivers and families can apply personalized non-pharmacological interventions to alleviate the symptoms at home, and they could apply more methods to treating unexpected symptoms as well. Then, let's move on to the next research topic, about the symptoms of dementia. Here is the overview of the process and methods. I collected the holistic symptoms by desk research and expert consulting. Symptoms discovered by chance during the interviews with users were replenished as well. After holistic typical symptoms of dementia were collected, I used different models from different perspectives to make clusters and mapped all the symptoms appropriately. According to the combination of psychosocial framework and BPSD model, all the symptoms were classified into 6 categories: physical, cognitive, emotional, behavioral, social, and value. From the user's feedback, the informal caregivers and family members believed that the emotional and behavioral symptoms had the most possibility to be improved, and the people with dementia and stakeholders in the early stage wanted to improve the cognitive functions most. Then, let's move on to the next research topic, about the non-pharmacological intervention. There are many different types of non-pharmacological interventions applied to manage symptoms of dementia due to many benefits, such as no side effects. In China, users can obtain non-pharmacological interventions in well-equipped rehabilitation centers, and the cost is comparatively expensive. So, the threshold for trying non-pharmacological interventions needs to be lower. Desk research was the research method, including reviewing systematic reviews and literature reviews. The research aim was to understand which non-pharmacological intervention was effective to which symptom. Besides, how the non-pharmacological interventions work, and what detailed information needs to be known for personalization needs to be figured out. Actually, it's difficult to gauge non-pharmacological intervention from literature due to the lack of uniform definition and norms. So I use these 4 factors to organize the important information of non-pharmacological intervention: the effect, active ingredient, things needs to pay attention to, and the investment. Here are 2 examples. The detailed form can be found in the appendix. Then, the next research topic, about the next. The main research methods were interviews, context inquiry, observation, and desk research. The main data source came from interviews with well-experienced caregivers and nurses. Here are some examples. You can see the relevant people with dementia's information used to handle for personalization, and how the neck works for which symptoms. In the end, 22 necks were collected. They can be found in the appendix. From these examples, we can find that personalized nursing requires not only the knowledge of non-pharmacological intervention, but also knowing the patient's condition, including habits, history, and so on. The last research aim was to understand the target users, about their latent needs and features. Research questions were formulated. First, do the target user need such a tool? Do they want to handle knowledge and next to apply non-pharmacological interventions on the people with dementia? From the in-depth interviews, both the informal caregivers and the nurses thought they really need such a tool. The second research question is, who knows the people with dementia best, and how to effectively acquire and communicate the people with dementia's information? Here I invited 2 people with dementia who still have the communication capability to participate in the co-design session. Clarity was applied here by choosing from a pair of pictures of what the people with dementia would like to do ideally in the future. The family and the caregivers made their choices separately, and their results were compared with people with dementia's choices in order to test how well the stakeholders know about the people with dementia. The result was that the family know people with dementia's personal history very well, while the caregivers was very aware of the people with dementia's typical symptoms, such as the people with dementia liked to go outside. The people with dementia had a slightly obsessive behavior of cleaning things and so on. The last research question is, which channel is the most preferred one? I designed a simple session. 7 different demonstration ways of tours were written on the cards. Then, I asked the informal caregivers to rank the cards according to their preference. The results showed that the most preferred channels was app and short videos because of the convenience, but they are not trustworthy enough. After the research, the design problem, target users, and use scenario were defined. Here I defined the problem as designing a tool to help informal caregivers apply better dementia care to alleviate the emotional and behavioral symptoms of people with dementia by personalized non-pharmacological interventions. The main target users are caregivers, including untrained home-based caregivers, novice caregivers without much experience, and family members. They can learn about the symptoms, non-pharmacological interventions, and the next of dementia through the tour. Potential users also include people who live with elderly people with similar symptoms. A typical disease of dementia is Alzheimer's disease, and it's a disease that is better to be prevented and treated earlier. So it is good to learn and understand some basic knowledge. Next, there are 3 main use scenarios. Scenario 1 is searching information. The people with dementia shows the symptom, then the caregiver uses the tool to check what kind of interventions they can apply to treat this symptom. Scenario 2 is learning information. The nurses or the caregivers want to use the tool to learn different non-pharmacological interventions. Scenario 3 is sharing information. a caregiver comes up with a good and effective idea about personalized application of a non-pharmacological intervention, and he wants to share with others through this tool. It could also be a caregiver wants to use the tool to find others' experiences about taking care for people with dementia. The next phase is design development. It's a diverse process. Firstly, I invited 10 designers to do an online brainstorm session. A large number of ideas were acquired during the discussion, which inspired me a lot. The C-box was used to map the results of the brainstorm. Then, the ideas were written in vivid sentences on the cards and with simple visuals, and they were all posted on the white wall. Similar ideas were posted close to each other. The interesting ideas were marked for emphasis. Therefore, I was able to construct 8 different concepts from different directions, but in the same level of detailedness. Here are the 8 concepts. Then, the weighted objective was applied to evaluate the 8 concepts systematically. The evaluation criteria and the weight were discussed with the mentor and a designer. There were 17 criteria in total. Each criteria's weight was from 1 to 10 for a total of 100. Each concept was scored from 1 to 10 according to each criterion, and the scores were added up to get the final score. Concepts 1, 2, 5, 7 got higher scores, as the direction of features of concept 1 and 2 and 5 and 7 were similar. They were combined into 2 final concepts. After choosing the concepts, I created the storyboards for each concept and tested them with the users. For concept A, the basic logic was to develop a tool to automatically detect and report symptoms to the caregivers and provide suggestions on the personal intervention methods. From research insights, the emotional and behavioral symptoms burdened the caregivers most. Detecting the EEG signal could tell a relatively accurate emotion, so an EEG detector can be used to continuously detect and observe the people with dementia's emotional status. The detector is connecting to the caregiver's phone so that when an emotional symptom occurs, a message pops out and the suggested interventions and next are shown as well. While for behavioral symptoms, after researching wearable technology and behavioral symptoms of people with dementia, I thought it was not feasible because there were no suitable wearable devices that could accurately detect the behavioral symptoms. Therefore, at the current stage, the solution could target more on emotional symptoms. For Concept B is going to build a platform as a bridge for experts and caregivers to communicate and as a repository to popularize dementia-related knowledge. Experts including doctors, nurses, therapists, and experienced caregivers can upload their knowledge of symptoms, interventions, and next. Informal caregivers including home-based caregivers, novice caregivers, and family members can search and learn this information on the platform. Besides, they also can discuss with each other and with the experts in the forum, a functional block of the platform. After preparing the storyboard, the second round of evaluation was conducted to select the final concept for further development and iterations. Concept A and Concept B focused on the different directions, and they solved the different scenarios and pain points. Therefore, opinions from real users could help the decision. Both qualitative and quantitative researches were conducted to collect users' opinions. In qualitative research, the storyboard were printed and distributed to the users. including the previous users in the research phases and the users in a rehabilitation care center. Their comments and preferences were asked and discussed. Users thought Concept A was not feasible at this moment. Experienced caregivers thought it would be impossible to let the people with dementia wear the EEG detector, because people with dementia will catch and drop the device, and it's uncomfortable to wear the device for a long time. For Concept B, users thought it's very convenient and reliable to find information on such a platform. Besides, they also like the forum function. A user whose father is a people with dementia told me that seeing someone share a story about a useful neck gave him a sense of hope, because dementia cannot be cured, and so this feeling of hope is very important to him. While in the quantitative research, a total of 51 questionnaire responses were received, and I got the same results. The user preferred Concept B. Therefore, I made the final decision. I was going to design a platform to integrate information of symptoms, non-pharmacological interventions, and next. This platform has three main functions. First, the search function allows caregivers to search for both symptoms and interventions. According to the previous insights, it's a common scenario that the people with dementia had symptoms, and then the caregiver used this product to search for symptoms, and then check the recommended interventions. Therefore, the search page is the first page when the user opens the app. The second function is to allow experts to upload and edit entries. Experts can edit existing entries and create new entries, either for the symptoms or for the interventions. Experienced caregivers can add next as well. The third function is to provide a discussion forum for communication among users. Not only can users discuss with each other, but also communicate with experts. Here is the information framework and the overview of the prototype. Let's see the detailed design through function flows. The first function is search symptoms and check the suggested interventions. On the search page, the search history is returned because some symptoms may not have appeared for the first time. Search history makes it easier for users to quickly search. Besides, the user can also input content via voice or by taking photos. The user can click on the entry to view the detailed content. On the symptom entry page, users can view short videos or photos to quickly learn this entry. In recommended interventions or next, the user can click and go to an interventions entry to see the details of the intervention. In addition, on the entry page, there is a simple discussion forum where the user can share their questions or comments, then the experts can answer them. The second function is view posts in the forum and check all the replies. The forum is on the Discover page. The user can go to the forum page and view all the posts. The user can tap to see relevant symptoms and interventions information. In addition, user can also view all replies to the post. They can like or tag or share posts, or even replies that resonate with them. The third function is create an entry of a symptom. By tapping on the creation icon, the user can add symptoms and also interventions or questions. The user can not only add basic information, but also pictures, videos of the description and the recommended interventions or next are necessary in order to ensure the inclusiveness of the product. The next function is mark a symptom and check my mark and bookmarks. The user can mark this entry by clicking on the mark icon. In addition, the user can manage the content they have marked on the My Mark page. Besides, the user can create bookmarks to personalize the content they have collected. The last function is go to my page and check my history answers. There are two main blocks of content on my page. The user's questions, answers, and entries are in one block, and the content marked, liked, and shared by the users are in another block. Then, the last phase, the deliver. After creating the prototype in Chinese version, I went to test the app with target users and improved some aspects of the design. I did the usability test with 5 users, 2 nurses, 2 caregivers, and 1 family member of people with dementia. I also did the expert review with 2 experienced designers. Here is the task list. There are 4 tasks, and they cover almost all the pages. When testing task 2 with a nurse, she suggested that the answer from experts should be separated from the regular users. Besides, only the experts or the well-experienced caregivers are allowed to edit the entries. Therefore, the entries could be more reliable and authentic. So, I created a user growth system. For those doctors, therapists, nurses, they can go to verify as experts directly. For regular users, they need to level up by receiving marks, likes, shares from others. So their growth pathway starts from the novice caregiver, then the active star caregiver, and finally the well-experienced caregiver. Besides, the entries that are added or created by well-experienced users need to be verified and passed by the experts. The second problem appears in the flow of using bookmarks. The common use flow in other apps or in daily life is that a person wants to mark this page, so he clicks the mark icon. Then he can choose or create a bookmark and collects this page into the bookmark. But in my design, the process of classifying the bookmarks are missing. As I mentioned before, I also invited 2 experienced designers to do the expert review. One suggestion was that the content in my mark page is not clear. When my marks are shown as content, the symptoms, posts, interventions are mixed up. Therefore, he recommended me to add a tag to explain what it is. In conclusion, there are 3 parts need to be improved. And this is the improved information framework. And this is the overview of the improved prototype. Let me explain the details of the 3 improvements. First, the user growth system. The left one is the previous My Page, and the right one is the improved My Page. You can see here, on the top of the page, there is a progress bar to show the growth. The large title shows the current level of the user, and the smaller words under the progression bar shows how to level up. And there is also an icon that lets the doctors or therapists or the nurses to verify as the experts. The second improvement is adding the mark function, so that when the user clicks the mark icon, then it will show the bookmark list. Then the user needs to select the bookmark, and then this page will be marked. The last improvement is about adding the tag of content. There is a small tag on the right top of each content card to tell the user what it is. At the end of the design, I did some research and made plans for delivery of this design. The first is about the spread channels of this app. I think from the individuals, this app can be shared through the online chat group or on the social media, but a better solution is to promoting this app by official institutions or Department of Health system in the government. And if the app will be launched to the users, a research and development team are required to develop the app into realistic, and the appropriate channels should be found. Besides, a team of experts needs to take responsibility for inputting content regularly are needed as well, and it should form an active atmosphere for online community. The user needs to have a motivation to be active in the app. Here is the SWOT analysis. It was applied to form a strategic overview of this app in the Chinese market. Lastly, the reflections on the limitations of this design. I only put the framework. It's lacking of content. It's impossible for an individual to fill up all the required information. It needs some expert teams, organizations to create content. Besides, there are no accessible channels currently. And because the usability test only suits the short time period, if the products are put into long-term use, I can imagine there will be some new problems. And then the further development. There is a need to find and contact an organization to further develop the app to launch. This organization should preferably be an official health organization or a department of a health system in government. In addition, I wonder if it is possible to involve more stakeholders from business aspects. For example, building a profitable business model to create more value from business aspects for this tool to attract investment from companies.